The cold of the wooden floor seeped through my thin socks, numbing my toes. I was crammed into the darkest corner of the oak wardrobe. The familiar scent of my mother's vanilla and mint air freshener now mixing with the musty smell of old clothes. It was suffocating. My name is Hannah, and I had come home to Cedar Falls, Ohio, 2 days early for Thanksgiving. I wanted to surprise my parents, but as it turned out, I was the one about to get the most horrifying shock of my life. Through a crack in the wardrobe door, I saw my parents, Robert and Susan, step into the house. The first snow of the season still clung to their coats, sparkling in the dim light. The home I grew up in suddenly felt alien and cold. Hannah will be back tomorrow. My mother's voice was hoarse in the quiet room. Have you prepared everything for her? My heart stopped. She was talking about me. My father sighed, the click of his lighter followed by the smell of cheap cigar smoke. Don't worry. She trusts us, a little sedative in her favorite roast. After that, everything will go smoothly. For the future of our son. My body went rigid. I clamped my hand over my mouth, my fingers digging into my own skin. This couldn't be real. My parents, who taught me about compassion and family, were they really talking about me? Why? Just because I'm a girl and my brother, Michael, is a boy. Then, my father bent down. Oh, what's this? A pair of sneakers here. Effed, he muttered, pointing right at the shoes I'd kicked off when I came in. The blood in my veins turned to ice. My mother is a perfectionist about keeping shoes in the closet. This stupid mistake was going to get me killed. Stop being paranoid. My mother cut in, her voice tired. Maybe I pulled them out while cleaning. Hannah said she's coming tomorrow. Don't lose your nerve. Tomorrow is the important day. My father's suspicious eyes scanned the wardrobe one last time before he turned away. I let out a silent breath, but the relief was short-lived. For the future of our son. Those words echoed in my head. As they talked more, the horrifying truth unfolded. My brother, Michael, wasn't just the favorite. After a strange accident, a pastor convinced my parents he was possessed. The only way to save him? A ritual sacrifice of a direct family member. And the first, the eldest daughter, was the chosen one. Take a necessary sacrifice. Their years of kindness were all a lie, a cover for this blind, terrifying belief. They were planning to drown me in the bathtub on Thanksgiving night. The fear inside me slowly hardened into a cold, sharp rage. I stopped trying not to cry. These people weren't my parents anymore. They were monsters. About an hour later, Michael came home. He was only 15, but he looked pale and haunted. Nothing like the cheerful brother I remembered. My parents rushed to him, their voices soft and caring. The contrast between their love for him and their cold-blooded plan for me made my stomach turn. I stayed hidden in the darkness, my phone in my hand, recording everything. I had to survive this. Hours later, when the house was finally quiet except for my father's snoring, I pushed open the wardrobe door. The soft creak made my heart pound. I crept out, a shadow moving toward the front door. Suddenly, a noise came from Michael's room. I froze. His door swung open. He was standing there in the dark, staring right at me. He wasn't surprised. He smiled, a chilling, unnatural smile. Sister Anna, his voice was sharp, eerie. You came back too early. We were waiting for you. I stumbled back, my whole body numb. He knew. He knew all along. Don't be afraid, he said, stepping toward me. It's just a little pain. After that, I'll be fine, and you'll always be with us. In a different way, I turned and bolted for the front door, but it was too late. The living room light flashed on. My parents were there, their faces blank. My father was holding a rope. Id was a trap? I'm sorry, Hannah. My mother's voice trembled, but her eyes were firm. This is God's will. I was cornered. I looked at the people who raised me, who were now looking at me like an animal for slaughter. The fear was gone, replaced by a vast, cold emptiness. But then, Michael spoke. His voice was different, deep, ancient, and not his own. Wait. Everyone looked at him. He stepped in front of me, his eyes now pitch black, like two empty holes. She's no longer suitable, the voice from my brother said. She knows. Fear and betrayal have defiled her soul. The sacrifice will no longer be pure. We need something more innocent. His gaze, then my father's, then my mother's, all slowly turned towards the end of the hall, towards the room where our 5-year-old sister, Emily, was sleeping. The sweet little girl we all adored. No, I whispered, my voice breaking. The thing wearing my brother's face looked back at me, its smile widening into something purely evil. Don't worry, Sister Hannah. You were lucky, but you will have to live with this forever. I stood there, paralyzed as my own parents walked slowly toward my little sister's room. The door opened, then closed. I heard a soft sob, and then silence. The front door of my house was wide open, but I couldn't move. I had survived, but my soul was gone, and I knew this nightmare would follow me forever, haunting every breath I take. I was the survivor, but the price of my survival was far more terrifying than death itself. Thank you for listening to my story. If you're ever in a situation where you feel unsafe, even with people you're supposed to trust, please reach out for help. Tell a friend, a teacher, or call a helpline. Your safety is what matters most. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories. Stay safe out there.
Do you know what a curse smells like? It's not some abstract thing. That night, on a packed train rumbling through the Indian countryside, it was the sour stench of sweat and dust, the smoke of cheap cigarettes, and the heavy, suffocating scent of curry from someone's dinner. The flickering yellow light above trembled across tired faces, swaying with the rhythm of the train. I was 14. My name is Arjun. I sat by the window, palm pressed against the cold glass. My parents, Raj and Priya, sat across from me. My father, as hand gripped my mother, so tightly his knuckles were white, a silent confession of fear. Then I saw it. Out in the moonlit fields stood a figure, tall, thin, and horribly misshapen. Its limbs were long and crooked like dead branches glued to a body of just skin and bone. It didn't move. It just raised one bony arm and waved at me, slowly, mockingly. My scalp went numb. "Dad, look," I whispered. Rage turned, saw it, and froze. He yanked the green curtain shut, the metal rings clattering against the rail. "Priya," he rasped, his voice tight. "She's found us." My mother's face drained of all color. "No, we've gone so far." "It's her," he said, his voice cracking. "That shape, I'd know it anywhere." I stared at the curtain. "Who is she?" "Don't ever say her name, Arjun," my mother whispered, her palm slick with cold sweat as she squeezed my hand. "If you speak it, she'll carve your voice into her soul." A thick, heavy silence settled over us. The smell of curry suddenly turned foul. A chill swept through the sealed window, and then thump, thump, thump. Footsteps on the roof, slow, dry, as if something dead was walking right above us. Raj gripped my mother's hand even tighter. "She's up there." The conversations around us died. Everyone sat perfectly still, listening. Then a young man named Ravi, our old neighbor from the northern village, gasped. Tears streamed down his face as he stared at his phone. "My parents, they're dead," he cried out. On his screen was a picture of a ruined hut, splattered with blood. And in the corner, a faint, lanky figure, arms stretched long and crooked, waving. Raj muttered, almost to himself, "She's reclaiming what's hers." I couldn't stop trembling. "I'm scared, Dad." He held me close. "We'll survive again," he said, but his eyes were completely hollow. The footsteps stopped. The silence that followed was even worse. Then a shrill, hissing voice crackled through the old speaker above us. "Return what was taken. The child belongs to me." Screams erupted. Passengers surged toward the far end of the carriage, trampling each other in a wave of pure terror. In the chaos, I lost my parents. A cold, skeletal hand brushed my shoulder. I spun around. No one was there. "Dad! Mom!" I shouted, but my voice was swallowed by the panic. And then, darkness. The lights went out completely, leaving only the faint glimmer of phone screens. In that dead silence, a whisper slid right against my ear. "You belong to me, Arjun. You are the promise of the village." I knew that voice. It was the voice that had haunted my dreams for years, the one my parents always tried to deny existed. A flash of light cut through the dark. She stood at the far end of the carriage. Her face was a crude wooden mask, her eyes two empty pits, her grin carved from ear to ear. Her arms stretched upward, almost touching the ceiling. She wasn't waving anymore. She was calling me. I stumbled backward, right into my father. "She can't take you," Raj whispered, but his voice was broken. "Why does she want me?" I cried. Priya held me tight. "Because you're the only one left, Arjun. The village promised you to her. A sacrifice for rain, for a good harvest. But we ran. We stole you." The truth hit me like a physical blow. I wasn't just a child. I was a debt, a promise, a stolen soul. The tall figure began moving through the crowd. Everyone she touched simply collapsed, drained and silent. "We can't run forever," Priya sobbed. Raj nodded, tears gleaming in his eyes. "You must live, Arjun. Remember us." He pushed me toward the next carriage. "Go. Don't look back." I stumbled through the door. When I turned, she was standing right in front of my parents. She didn't strike them. She only turned her wooden head toward me, and her smile grew wider, satisfied. Then she lifted one long, bony finger and pointed straight at me. A promise. A claim. Raj and Priya looked at each other one last time, then stepped forward together. The moment they touched her, both of them just dissolved into shadow. Soundless. Gone. The lights flickered back on. Everything looked normal. Passengers were murmuring about a power failure, mass panic. They glanced at me with pity, a boy, all alone. "Your parents must have gotten off early," a kind woman said gently. "They didn't remember. They couldn't." To them, Raj and Priya had never even existed. When the train pulled into the final station, daylight poured in. I stepped onto the platform, completely alone. In the reflection of a glass stall, I saw myself, and behind me, her faint outline. Her long, twig-like hands rested on my shoulders. Her grin stretched wide, carved into my reflection. I am Arjun, the child of a broken promise. I survived, but not to be free. She didn't take my life. She took my solitude. Now, whenever I look into a mirror, she is there, smiling, reminding me that I will never be alone again. Tonight, the knocking at the door came again. It wasn't an ordinary knock. It was a slow, dragging sound, like fingernails scraping across wood. 1, 2, 3. Then silence. A silence so thick it felt like the darkness itself was holding its breath. And then it began again. I lay frozen on the bed, my heart hammering against my ribs. I tried to breathe as softly as possible, but the sound of my own pulse was a drumbeat in my ears. My one-bedroom apartment on the 10th floor, usually a small comfort, suddenly felt vast and menacing. I'm a freelance graphic designer. It's a job that lets me escape to any city I want, and this time, my escape led me here, to this dilapidated apartment building. I chose it because it was cheap, and maybe, just maybe, I thought the city's constant noise could finally drown out the whispers in my own mind. The knocking came again, but this time, it was closer. It was in the bedroom. My hand shot out, grabbing my phone. The screen lit up. 3:17 a.m. The numbers made my heart clench. That was the exact hour Henry had died. Moonlight sliced through the blinds, casting a shadow on the wall. A tall, thin figure, its head tilted just so. The posture was hauntingly familiar. It didn't move. It just stood there, waiting. The musty smell of the old apartment grew stronger, mingling with a scent I knew all too well, the scent of damp earth, the smell of the grave where we buried him 10 years ago. "Victor, open the door for me." The voice was hoarse, but I knew it instantly. It was Henry's voice. You... Henry?" I whispered, my own voice trembling so hard the words barely came out. A quiet, chilling laugh echoed in the darkness. "Don't you remember me? I've missed you so much, Victor." I clutched the blanket, my skin soaked in a cold sweat. "You're dead," I choked out. "You died 10 years ago in that accident." "Accident?" The voice turned sharp, cutting through the air. "You call that an accident? You pushed me, Victor. You killed me." The memories I had locked away for a decade burst open like a floodgate. The dark attic, the shouting, and that one final push. The push that sent him falling from the rooftop. It wasn't an accident. We had argued over our grandfather's inheritance. In a moment of pure rage, I pushed him. I didn't mean to, I confessed. Tears I didn't know I still had streaming down my face. I was just scared. Scared? His voice softened, but it wasn't comforting. It was full of a terrible pity. I was scared too, Victor. I was alone in the dark for 10 years. But it's okay now. I found you. The shadow on the wall began to move, inching closer to my bed. I could hear a rasping sound, like heavy, labored breaths, and that damp, earthy smell grew stronger, suffocating. "Why now? Why are you coming back now?" I asked, desperately trying to buy myself a few more seconds. "Because you're about to get married, Victor. You're planning to start a brand new life while I'm still trapped in darkness?" My heart pounded. My engagement to Michael was next week. I had never told him about Henry, about what really happened, about the guilt that had been my constant companion. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I want justice, Victor. You've lived 10 years wrapped in lies. Now it's your turn to experience what I went through." The shadow reached the bed. I felt its presence like a block of ice, seeping into the air, chilling me to the bone. An invisible hand touched my cheek. It was cold, so cold, and it made my skin go numb. "Don't be afraid," the voice whispered right in my ear. "I won't hurt you. I just want to live again, just for a moment." "What? What does that mean?" I stammered, trembling uncontrollably. "Let me borrow your body, Victor. Let me feel life one more time. Just for one day. Then I promise I'll leave." "No," I shouted, trying to scramble away to escape the bed. But an invisible force pinned me down. The cold seeped deeper past my skin, into every cell of my body. "Don't resist," he pleaded. "We're siblings, aren't we? Blood is thicker than water. You owe me this life." I felt my consciousness start to fade, as if I were being pushed into a dark, forgotten corner of my own mind. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The room blurred before my eyes, replaced by a dense, swirling fog. And then I heard my own voice, but it wasn't me speaking. "Thank you, Victor. I promise I'll take good care of this body." At dawn, or what used to be me, got out of bed, stretching comfortably. I walked to the kitchen and brewed a cup of tea I had never drunk before, the bitter kind Henry always liked. I looked in the mirror, smiling at a familiar face, but the eyes staring back were strange, cold. "It's good to be back," the voice said. My voice, but his tone, echoing in the silent apartment. And I, the real me, trapped inside my own body, could only watch. I watched my hands call Michael and cancel the engagement with flimsy excuses. I heard my mouth speak words I didn't know, laughing in a way I had never laughed. On the second night, at exactly 3:17 a.m., I felt Henry's presence more vividly than ever. He was no longer a separate entity, a shadow on the wall. He was a part of me. "He lied to you, Victor." His voice echoed inside my head. "One day is not enough. I think I'll stay a little longer." Horror, cold and sharp, gripped me. I had been deceived. He never intended to leave. "Don't worry," he whispered, a phantom thought in my own mind. "We'll build a new life together. A better life than you ever could." I tried to fight back to regain control, but it was like trying to catch the wind. He had mastered my body perfectly, with a terrifying, intimate familiarity. As the week went by, I realized the terrible truth. Henry wasn't just occupying my body, he was erasing me. My memories started to fade, replaced by his. My feelings grew dull, replaced by his emotions. And then I understood the final, horrifying truth. This was not punishment. This was complete possession. He didn't want justice. He wanted a second chance at life. Tonight, at 3:17 a.m., the 7th time the clock has struck this hour since he arrived, I feel myself fading more than ever. I am a ghost in my own body. I can hear Henry whispering, "It's almost done, Victor. Soon you'll be free." But I know what he really means. My freedom is my total disappearance. And the most terrifying part? I'm starting to forget who I even was. Sometimes I wonder, was I the intruder all along? Was Henry the true master of this body? Perhaps when the sun rises again, it will only be him, living a second life in the body of the brother who killed him. And maybe that is the perfect punishment. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more content just like this. We'll see you in the next one.
The neon lights of Tokyo reflected on the taxi ceiling, casting an eerie purplish red glow. I curled up on the back seat, trying to ignore the stabbing pains in my stomach. The scent of perfume lingered in the air, sweet and suffocating. The driver, an old man with skin wrinkled like bark and cloudy eyes, hadn't said a word since I got in, but I felt his gaze through the cracked rearview mirror. Those eyes never left me. It wasn't simple curiosity. It was the stare of a hunter observing its final prey. Then his hoarse voice broke the silence, slow and heavy, like stones falling into a deep well. "Young girl, that fetus will kill you." I gasped. "Do what did you say?" "It doesn't want to," he continued, his gnarled hands gripping the steering wheel. "But it is nourished by something dark. An old grudge from the water. Do you know such a place? A well? A river bend?" My heart froze. Memories of the old village well back home, where my childhood friend Hanako and I used to play, flooded my mind. And another, darker memory followed. A summer afternoon, an argument, a slip. How do you know?" I whispered, my hands trembling as I clutched the ofuda, the protective talisman my mother gave me before I came to the city. The old man didn't answer. Instead, he stopped the car before a dark alley leading to my neighborhood. "That grudge is not only aimed at you," he whispered, his voice nearly lost in the sound of falling rain. "It targets the bloodline. You must find what it left in your home before it's too late." He refused the fare and disappeared into the night, leaving me with a pounding heart and a deep sense of dread. When I entered the apartment, my husband Kenji was asleep on the sofa. He woke, looking weary. I recounted everything, but he just shook his head. "Aika, you're overworking yourself," he said, his voice steady, but his eyes avoided mine. "We'll see a doctor tomorrow. Everything will be fine." But nothing was fine. That night, the nightmare came. I saw myself standing on the edge of the old village well. The water below churned black, and a familiar voice in echoes whispered up from the depths. "Why did you push me, Aiko? We were friends." Then a cold, wet hand, pale and unnaturally long-fingered, clutched the edge of the well. I woke with a start, drenched in sweat. The ofuda under my pillow had burned at one corner, giving off the acrid smell of scorched paper and stagnant pond water. The next morning at the clinic, the doctor delivered the news with a grave face. The fetal heartbeat had stopped. Kenji silently held my hand, but his grip was cold and lifeless. On the way home, my phone pinged with a message from Hanako. Congratulations. My good news too? What a strange coincidence, isn't it? Attached was an ultrasound image, and in the corner, I saw Ita Kukishi doll, a traditional Japanese wooden doll, placed on the table. But the usual face painted on it was erased, replaced with crude red scribbles, resembling a bleeding face. It was the doll I had given Hanako when we were children. A chill ran down my spine. Primera rushed on, ignoring Kenji's calls. Instinct told me to search for it. And then I found it in the darkest corner of the storage room. Behind old suitcases was another kake. It was identical to the one in Hanako's photo. Face erased, vivid red marks, body cold and wet, as if freshly pulled from water. When I touched it, a sharp pain tore through my abdomen, and Hanako's whispers echoed in my ears. Now it is time to return what belongs to me. At that moment Kenji entered. He looked at me, then at the door, and sighed heavily. She will never forgive you, Aiko, he said, his voice hollow. After that fateful day at the well, Hanako could no longer have children. She said, "You took away her ability to be a mother, so now you must return it." I cannot stop her. She controls everything. The harsh truth made me collapse. It wasn't some abstract magic, but a cruel human plot hidden beneath a veil of the spiritual. Hanako, driven by pain and jealousy, had poisoned my husband and staged a horrific scheme to steal the child she could never bear. I clutched the doll and fled the house. I drove to the old well in the deserted forest. Rain drizzled, the air heavy with damp earth and moss. I raised the kukeshi ready to toss it into the deep well, hoping to end it all. But before I could release it, a voice rang from behind. "It's no longer yours, Aiko." I turned. Hanako stood there, pale and drenched, as if she had just risen from the well. Her gaze was empty, yet full of hatred. "It's all your fault," she hissed. "You took everything from me. Now I take it back." She lunged at me. Amid the struggle, I heard a sound not from Hanako, but from my own belly. A shrill, chilling, childish giggle. Then everything went dark. I woke up in a hospital. Kenji sat beside me, his face full of sorrow and regret. He said he had found me unconscious near the well, completely alone. There was no sign of The doctor said I was lucky to be alive, but the fetus was gone. Yet, when they left the room, leaving me in the silence, I felt Ita movement, gentle yet twisting, deep within my lower belly. It had not gone. The thing conceived from fear, guilt, and my own curse still lingered. And tonight, as I close my eyes, I hear the faintest sound of running water, so close, as if from inside this room, and a whisper, no longer Hanako's, but something new, fragile and malevolent. "Mother, I'm here." Thank you for watching this chilling tale. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next story. Stay safe out there.
The neon lights of Tokyo reflected on the taxi ceiling, casting an eerie, purplish-red glow. I curled up on the back seat, trying to ignore the stabbing pains in my stomach. The scent of perfume lingered in the air, sweet and suffocating. The driver, an old man with skin wrinkled like bark and cloudy eyes, hadn't said a word since I got in. But I felt his gaze. Through the cracked rearview mirror, those eyes never left me. It wasn't simple curiosity. It was the stare of a hunter observing its final prey. Then his hoarse voice broke the silence, slow and heavy, like stones falling into a deep well. "Young girl, that fetus will kill you," I gasped. What did you say?" "It doesn't want to," he continued, his gnarled hands gripping the steering wheel. "But it is nourished by something dark, an old grudge. From the water. Do you know such a place? A well? A river bend?" My heart froze. Memories of the old village well back home, where my childhood friend Hanako and I used to play, flooded my mind. And another, darker memory followed. A summer afternoon, an argument, a slip. "How do you know?" I whispered, my hands trembling as I clutched the ofuda, the protective talisman my mother gave me before I came to the city. The old man didn't answer. Instead, he stopped the car before a dark alley leading to my neighborhood. "That grudge is not only aimed at you," he whispered, his voice nearly lost in the sound of falling rain. "It targets the bloodline. You must find what it left in your home, before it's too late." He refused the fare and disappeared into the night, leaving me with a pounding heart and a deep sense of dread. When I entered the apartment, my husband Kenji was asleep on the sofa. He woke, looking weary. I recounted everything, but he just shook his head. "Aiko, you're overworking yourself," he said, his voice steady, but his eyes avoided mine. "We'll see a doctor tomorrow. Everything will be fine." But nothing was fine. That night, the nightmare came. I saw myself standing on the edge of the old village well. The water below churned black, and a familiar voice, Hanako's, whispered up from the depths. "Why did you push me, Aiko? We were friends." Then a cold, wet hand, pale and unnaturally long-fingered, clutched the edge of the well. I woke with a start, drenched in sweat. The ofuda under my pillow had burned at one corner, giving off the acrid smell of scorched paper and stagnant pond water. The next morning at the clinic, the doctor delivered the news with a grave face. The fetal heartbeat had stopped. Kenji silently held my hand, but his grip was cold and lifeless. On the way home, my phone pinged with a message from Hanako. "Congratulations! My good news too. What a strange coincidence, isn't it?" Attached was an ultrasound image, and in the corner I saw it. A kokeshi doll, a traditional Japanese wooden doll placed on the table. But the usual face painted on it was erased, replaced with crude red scribbles resembling a bleeding face. It was the doll I had given Hanako when we were children. A chill ran down my spine. I rushed home, ignoring Kenji's calls. Instinct told me to search for it, and then I found it. In the darkest corner of the storage room, behind old suitcases, was another kokeshi. It was identical to the one in Hanako's photo. Face erased, vivid red marks, body cold and wet as if freshly pulled from water. When I touched it, a sharp pain tore through my abdomen and Hanako's whispers echoed in my ears. "Now it's time to return what belongs to me." At that moment, Kenji entered. He looked at me, then at the doll, and sighed heavily. "She will never forgive you, Aiko," he said, his voice hollow. "After that fateful day at the well, Hanako could no longer have children. She said you took away her ability to be a mother, so now you must return it. I cannot stop her. She controls everything." The harsh truth made me collapse. It wasn't some abstract magic, but a cruel, human plot hidden beneath a veil of the spiritual. Hanako, driven by pain and jealousy, had poisoned my husband and staged a horrific scheme to steal the child she could never bear. I clutched the doll and fled the house. I drove to the old well in the deserted forest. Rain drizzled, the air heavy with damp earth and moss. I raised the kokeshi, ready to toss it into the deep well, hoping to end it all. But before I could release it, a voice rang from behind. "It's no longer yours, Aiko." I turned. Hanako stood there, pale and drenched, as if she had just risen from the well. Her gaze was empty yet full of hatred. "It's all your fault," she hissed. "You took everything from me. Now I take it back." She lunged at me. Amid the struggle, I heard a sound, not from Hanako but from my own belly. A shrill, chilling, childish giggle. Then everything went dark. I woke up in a hospital. Kenji sat beside me, his face full of sorrow and regret. He said he had found me unconscious near the well, completely alone. There was no sign of Hanako. The doctor said I was lucky to be alive, but the fetus was gone. Yet, when they left the room, leaving me in the silence, I felt it. A movement, gentle yet twisting, deep within my lower belly. It had not gone. The thing conceived from fear, guilt, and my own curse still lingered. And tonight, as I close my eyes, I hear the faintest sound of running water, so close as if from inside this room, and a whisper, no longer Hanako's, but something new, fragile, and malevolent. "Mother, I'm here." Thank you for watching this chilling tale. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next story. Stay safe out there.
The sky over Mumbai was a dirty yellow canvas, the smog and city lights painting a sickly glow across the narrow, forgotten alleys. Anjali paid the taxi driver, her body a single, throbbing ache after another long night shift at the hospital. The air in her apartment building's hallway was thick and still, but as she climbed the stairs, a strange smell hit her. It was a bizarre, cloying mix of sweet frangipani flowers, sharp incense, and something else. Something foul, like rotting meat. She unlocked the door. The apartment was dark and quiet. Rohan was already asleep, his steady breathing the only sound in the small space. But the smell was stronger in here, clinging to the curtains, the furniture, every corner of their home. Anjali flicked on the living room light and froze. On their small altar, where usually only a photo of the goddess Lakshmi and some fresh jasmine flowers sat, there was a wreath. It was a bizarre, unsettling thing made of lurch. White, trumpet-shaped flowers, their thick petals twisted and curled like grasping fingers. The sickly sweet scent radiated from them. The next morning, she asked Rohan about it. "Rohan, did you buy these flowers?" He glanced over at the altar, his face a mask of confusion. "No, I thought you did." Weird. Maybe someone sent them as a gift. That night, Anjali couldn't sleep. The wreath's cloying perfume seemed to fill her lungs. In the dead of night, a tiny, unsettling sound drifted from the bedroom wall. It was a faint tinkling, like a handful of small pebbles being dropped one by one. When she woke up, the wreath was gone. Rohan sighed. Ed thrown it out, complaining about the smell, but the scent haunted Anjali all day at the hospital. It was a ghost in her scrubs, a whisper in the sterile air. During an ultrasound for a young expectant mother, the screen showed a fetus with no heartbeat. Anjali recoiled, the room spinning. A memory buried for 5 years, clawed its way to the surface. An emergency case. A young girl from a village, delirious with fever. She was wearing a strange wreath of white flowers, her eyes wide with terror. "Doctor, save me," the girl had whispered, her voice a dry rasp. Anjali shook her head, trying to push the image away. When she got home that evening, the smell hit her like a physical blow. The rotting frangipane was back, stronger than ever. She found Rohan sitting cross-legged in front of the altar, his eyes closed, his fingers methodically counting the beads of a rosary. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. He opened his eyes, but they seemed distant, unfocused. "Just praying," he mumbled. On the second night, the tinkling sound from the wall was louder, clearer. Anjali reached over, but the space beside her in bed was empty. Rohan was gone. Panic rising in her throat, she got up and found him standing in the living room, staring intently at the wall where the sound was coming from. "You hear that?" he whispered, his voice thin and strained. "It sounds like a child crying." Anjali listened. There was nothing but the sound of the wind rattling the window pane. And then she heard it, faint but unmistakable, the tiny, desperate sobs of a newborn baby. The next morning was even more disturbing. A line of tiny, wet footprints, too small to be human, led from the wall across the kitchen floor, disappearing under the sink. And on the altar, the wreath had reappeared, its petals fresh and dewy, as if it had just been woven. The sickly sweet smell was overpowering. Anjali knew this was no coincidence. She spent her day off at the city library, diving into old botanical texts. It didn't take long to find it. The flower was datura, a plant known for its beautiful but highly poisonous blossoms. Ancient texts described its use in dark, esoteric rituals. A powerful tool to summon restless, vengeful spirit. She returned home, her heart pounding with a cold, creeping dread. As she approached the apartment door, she heard Rohan's voice from inside, low and urgent on the phone. I know it was an accident. She didn't mean for it to happen." He hung up the moment she walked in. He knew. Rohan knew what was happening. He knew everything. That night, Anjali's dreams were a feverish torment. She was back in the village clinic from 5 years ago. The young girl with the datura wreath was on the table, her eyes locking onto Anjali's. "Save me," she whispered again. But this time something horrific happened. A tiny, purpled hand, impossibly small, emerged from the girl's womb, reaching, grasping for, and she woke up with a choked gasp, drenched in sweat. Rohan was sitting bolt upright beside her, his body rigid, his fists clenched so tight his knuckles were white. "You saw her too, didn't you?" Anjali whispered, her voice barely audible. He turned to her, his face pale and drawn. "Remember that day, 5 years ago? You called me. You said there was an incident at the clinic. A mistake." The memories flooded back. The frantic phone call, the cover-up to protect her career. "We have to do something," Anjali said, grabbing his arm. Rohan's gaze shifted to the dark corner of the room. "It's too late," he whispered, his voice cracking. He pointed. She's here. Anjali followed his gaze. In the deepest shadows, a figure was beginning to form, a woman in a dark red sari, her face obscured by darkness. As the figure moved, Anjali heard the faint, metallic jingle of silver bangles. And then the baby's cry echoed through the room again, louder and more insistent than ever. Desperate, they fled to a small, ancient temple tucked away in one of Mumbai's oldest neighborhoods. The elderly priest listened to their story, his face growing graver with every word. He shook his head slowly. The spirits of a mother and her unborn child are bound to you. Their passing was unjust, and they cannot find peace. This is a debt of karma. How do we pay it, Anjali pleaded? The priest looked at her with ancient, sorrowful eyes. A life was taken. The debt can only be paid with a life. The final night descended. Their apartment had transformed into a living hell. The tiny bells rang incessantly from within the walls. Wet, ghostly footprints crisscrossed every floor surface. The scent of datura was suffocating, so thick it felt like it was coating her throat. Suddenly, Rohan stood up, his movements stiff and unnatural. His eyes rolled back into his head, showing only the whites. When he spoke, it wasn't his voice. It was a shrill, chilling shriek that tore through the air. You took my life. Now I will take back what is mine. The thing wearing Rohan's body lunged at Anjali. Its hands, cold and impossibly strong, closed around her neck. She looked into his eyes and saw not her husband, but the burning, unholy hatred of a stranger. Rohan, she screamed, clawing at his hands. Just then, an excruciating pain ripped through her abdomen, doubling her over. And then, a new voice, a child's voice, spoke from her own mouth. Mother, I have returned. Rohan, or the spirit possessing him, stumbled back, stunned. Before him stood not Anjali, but a twisted parody of her. Her eyes were pools of pure black, and a grotesque smile stretched her lips. The next morning, concerned neighbors called the police. When the couple didn't emerge, they found the apartment eerily silent. Rohan was curled in a corner, his eyes wide and vacant, staring at nothing. Anjali lay on the floor, motionless, her hands clutched protectively over her abdomen. The datura wreath sat on the altar, its white petals fresh, its sweet scent lingering in the air. The official cause of death was recorded as sudden cardiac failure. There were no marks on her body, but the coroner noted the haunting, unnatural smile fixed on her face. Rohan was never the same. He spent his days sitting before the altar, mumbling words no one could understand. And every few days, he would leave the apartment only to return with a fresh wreath of datura, an offering for an invisible spirit. Night after night, in that cursed apartment, the faint tinkling of tiny bells and the sickly sweet scent of frangipani and wrought lingarda, permanent reminder of a debt that could never, ever be truly repaid. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. See you next time. The orange streetlights of Tokyo streamed through the blinds, painting long, eerie streaks across the old wooden floor. I lay awake on my futon, listening to the wind whistle through a crack in the window. It sounded like the sigh of a lonely spirit. It was almost 2 a.m. That strange hour when the city finally holds its breath, and every sound feels magnified. Suddenly, my phone buzzed, vibrating against the tatami mat. A message in the residents' group chat lit up the screen. It was from the building manager. The residents in Zingi Psychiatric Hospital nearby has reported a patient escape. Please lock your doors and avoid contact with anyone acting abnormally. I frowned, a knot of confusion tightening in my stomach. Ginsengi Hospital. I'd lived in this apartment for 3 years and had never once heard of a psychiatric hospital in the area. It felt wrong. My unease deepened as another message popped up, this time a private one from Kenji, who lived on the 7th floor. Yuki, did you see that message? Look at this. Attached was a photo, grainy and dark. It showed the street below, specifically the last cherry blossom tree of the season. Beneath its branches, a dark figure stood completely motionless. Even in the blurry image, I could make out the pale fabric of a hospital gown. But the face, it was just a smudge, a void where features should have been. Kenji's next text made my blood run cold. He's been standing there for 2 hours, not moving. A shiver traced its way down my spine. I had to see for myself. Crawling from my futon, I crept to the window and carefully parted the curtains. My breath caught in my throat. He was still there, a silent sentinel under the amber glow of the streetlight. Cherry blossom petals danced in the wind, but the figure remained impossibly still, his clothes not even fluttering. It was like looking at a statue, a glitch in reality. Then, the doorbell rang. The sharp, sudden sound ripped through the silence, making my heart leap into my throat. Who could possibly be at my door at this hour? My hands trembled as I crept to the peephole. On the other side stood Mrs. Tanaka from the 3rd floor, her face pale and her coat strangely soaked, as if she'd been caught in a downpour. But the night was completely dry. Yuki-chan, her voice came through the door, trembling but unervingly even. Please, open the door. Someone's following me. My eyes darted to her shoulder, where a dark, spreading stain marred her coat. Was that blood? You're hurt, I whispered, my voice barely audible. It's just a scratch, she replied quickly. A little too quickly. I need to make a call. My phone's dead. Just then, my phone screen lit up again. It was Kenji. Don't open the door. There's no hospital called Jinsengi anywhere near here. And Sato, the manager, he's on vacation. My heart froze. I looked back through the peephole, and this time I saw it. Mrs. Tanaka's eyes. They were wide open, glassy, and unblinking. She wasn't looking at the door. She was looking straight through it, as if she could see me cowering on the other side. Yuki-chan, the voice said again, losing its panicked edge and becoming flat, almost mechanical. I know you're in there. Open the door. Then, a faint click. My eyes shot to the doorknob. It was mobbing, turning slowly back and forth. Someone was trying to force it open. My phone buzzed one last time. Kenji's message was frantic, cut off mid-sentence. They're not. And then, nothing. Silence from his end. Footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. Not one set, but several, and they were moving in perfect chilling unison. A familiar voice called out, friendly and authoritative. "Hello. Is anyone home?" It was Manager Sato, but he was supposed to be on vacation. The sound of a lock being jimmied next door was followed by a short, muffled scream. Then silence again. I scrambled backward, pressing myself into the farthest corner of my room, my whole body trembling uncontrollably. The synchronized footsteps stopped right in front of my door. There was no knock this time, just a whisper, a sibilant sound that seemed to snake its way through the wood. "We know you're in there." "That's okay, we'll wait." The footsteps faded away. I stayed in that corner for what felt like an eternity, listening to the frantic beating of my own heart. Hours passed. As the first gray light of dawn began to filter through the blinds, I finally found the courage to move. I crawled back to the door and peered through the peephole. The hallway was empty. My neighbor's door looked perfectly fine, untouched. Had I imagined it all? Was it just some horrible, vivid nightmare? My phone buzzed, and my heart jumped. It was a new message in the residents' group chat, again from Manager Sato. "Dear residents, the situation has been resolved. Have a pleasant day." Resolved. My eyes fell to the floor, to the tiny gap under my door. Pushed partially through was a single, dried cherry blossom petal, stained with a dark, brownish red smudge. Blood. Shaking, I went to the window and pulled back the curtain. The city below was waking up. People were walking to work. Cars were passing by. Everything looked completely normal. It was so jarring, so utterly mundane after the night I'd just had. And then I noticed them. In the apartment building across the street, in every single window, stood a figure, motionless. Their faces were just blurs against the morning light. And then, all at once, in perfect, horrifying synchronization, they all turned their heads to look directly at me. I yanked the curtain shut, my heart hammering against my ribs. My phone vibrated again. A private message. "Yuki, are you okay? Everything's fine now." It was from Kenji, but my relief vanished instantly. He always called me Yuki-chan. Always. Never just Yuki. Nothing was resolved. They had just changed their tactics. They were trying to lure me out. No. And then the doorbell rang again. This time, a voice spoke that shattered the last of my resolve. It was my mother's voice, the mother who had died 3 years ago. "Yuki, open the door," she said, her voice filled with a warmth I hadn't heard in years. "Mom misses you." Tears streamed down my face. I knew it wasn't real. It couldn't be, but it sounded so real. I pressed my hands over my ears, rocking back and forth, trying to block out the sound. The memory, the temptation, a strange thought wormed its way into my exhausted, terrified mind. What if I was the one who was wrong? What if they were the normal ones, and I was the one who was broken? What if opening the door was the only way to be safe? As darkness began to fall again, the knocking continued, patient and persistent. My hand, as if with a will of its own, slowly reached for the lock. Thank you so much for watching. If this story sent a chill down your spine, Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Stay safe and always check the peephole. The streetlights of Jakarta cast long, faint stripes across the floor. Filtering through the blinds, I woke up to a sound I'd never heard before. It wasn't the usual creak of branches scraping against the tin roof, but a soft, steady tapping. It sounded like someone was knocking on my bedroom window. I held my breath, every muscle tense, just listening. The tapping moved, a chilling journey from the window to the walls, then down to the floor. It was as if something was slowly, methodically exploring my apartment. I snatched my phone from the nightstand. The screen's glare pierced the darkness, showing a message from the building manager. "Do not open the door. There has been an incident at the nearby mental hospital." My heart hammered against my ribs. Then another message popped up. This one from an anonymous number. "They are not patients. They are people who have been dead for a long time." My blood ran cold. Just then, a knock echoed through the apartment, louder this time, right at my front door. "Rina, please, open the door. I need help." It was Mrs. Sori, my downstairs neighbor. I crept to the peephole. She looked pale, her face etched with fear, and there was something dark staining the front of her blouse. "He bit me," she whispered, her voice a raspy, desperate plea. "But now I feel stronger. We have it again." I hesitated, my hand hovering over the lock. "Where are you, Her?" "Let me call for help," I offered, my voice trembling. No," Mrs. Sori shrieked, her voice twisting into something monstrous and unrecognizable. "Open this door now." The sheer force of her scream sent me stumbling backward. I tripped over a side table, and the sound of shattering glass filled the air. Outside, the pounding on the door intensified, becoming a furious, relentless assault. Panic seized me. I scrambled into the bathroom, slammed the door shut, and fumbled with the lock until it clicked into place. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I tried to call for help, but there was no signal, no bars. Nothing. I was trapped. In the suffocating darkness, a memory surfaced, the utility knife I kept under the sink, as my fingers closed around the cool, plastic handle. Another memory flashed through my mind, unwanted and vivid. A fire, the smell of smoke, chaos, and desperate hands gripping mine. I shook my head, forcing it away. I was the only survivor of that fire 5 years ago. I had to survive this, too. After what felt like an eternity, the pounding stopped. An unnerving silence fell over the apartment. Slowly, cautiously, I unlocked the bathroom door and peeked out. The apartment was quiet, still, but then I smelled it. Jasmine, Mrs. Sari's perfume. It was faint, but it was unmistakably here. Inside, my phone buzzed in my hand, another message lighting up the screen. "They don't need you to open the door. They are already inside." A cold dread washed over me, a chilling realization that crawled up my spine. The scent of jasmine grew stronger, now mingled with a faint, acrid smell of smoke. Primera vez queda away, my eyes darting around the room, heading toward my bedroom. The bedroom door was slightly ajar, a dark sliver in the dim light. From the blackness within, a calm voice spoke, sending shivers down my spine. "We don't need to be afraid anymore, Rena." Mrs. Sori stepped out of the shadows. Her skin was ghostly pale, her eyes deep, endless pools of black. The wound on her shoulder was gone. How did you get in?" I stammered, raising the utility knife, the blade trembling in my grip. "We are no longer limited by doors," Mrs. Sori said, her voice soft, almost soothing. "We have awakened. We are everywhere." A surge of pure panic propelled me forward. I lunged for the front door, yanking on the handle, but it wouldn't budge. It was sealed shut. "This isn't the end, Rina. It's the beginning," Mrs. Sari said from behind me. "All of us have been dead for a long time. You too, Rina. You died in the fire." The words hit me like a physical blow. The memories I'd suppressed for so long came rushing back, the blare of fire alarms, the thick, choking smoke, the intense heat of the door handle as I tried to escape. "No," I whispered, my voice barely audible. The knife slipped from my numb fingers and clattered to the floor. "We all have our nightmares," Mrs. Sari said gently, her voice filled with a strange sympathy. "Until we accept the truth, you were trapped here, just like all of us." I looked down at my hands, flexing my fingers. Then, on some unseen impulse, I reached out toward the wall beside me. My hand didn't stop. It passed right through the solid surface into a cold, empty nothingness. The truth was undeniable. We were ghosts, all of us, living echoes trapped in the places where our lives had ended. "Now we have awakened," Mrs. Sari said. Outside, the first light of dawn was breaking, casting the world in a gray mist. Through the window, I could see them, shadowy figures moving silently through the streets. Hundreds of awakened souls, their eyes as empty as Mrs. Sari's, but their smiles serene, peaceful. I raised a hand to my face, feeling the skin, which still felt warm, still felt real. "Do not resist," Mrs. Sori whispered, her voice right beside my ear. "Let us help you remember." And then it all came back, not in flashes, but in a flood. The apartment burning around me, the smoke suffocating me, and the crushing, soul-deep loneliness that followed. For 5 years, I had been reliving my final days, trapped in a loop of my own making. When I opened my eyes again, the illusion was gone. The apartment was a charred, blackened ruin. Mrs. Sori stood before me, a translucent figure with scorched skin and eyes filled with a profound sorrow. "Now, you see?" she said. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. I was dead, and for the first time, I truly understood what that meant. Looking out the window again, I saw the hundreds of awakened souls waiting below, no longer shadows, but clear, distinct figures, all visible to each other. "What will we do now?" I asked, my voice small. "We will help the others awaken," Mrs. Sori replied, a sense of purpose in her ethereal voice. "Perhaps then we can all finally move on." A strange peace settled over me, replacing the fear and confusion. I was no longer alone. I turned from the window, taking one last look at the burned-out shell of my apartment, my tomb for the past 5 years. Then, I followed Mrs. Sori into the hallway, where the other awakened souls were waiting. Across the city, The knocking continued. A gentle, persistent summons, calling more trapped souls to awaken from the dream they called life. The Bangkok sky burned a brilliant orange before surrendering to the damp, suffocating night. Ploy sighed, pulling the curtain down, but it couldn't block the musty smell of the old apartment. It was a familiar scent, always mingling with the faint aroma of incense, drifting from somewhere distant. This whole condominium felt like a living thing, panting with each sunset, its pitch-black hallways echoing with footsteps no one could see. A recent string of brutal murders in the area had pushed her to install a rear camera. The victims all shared a grim similarity: missing body parts. That security camera was supposed to bring peace of mind, but lately it had become the source of her nightmares. Her phone would buzz relentlessly, right at midnight, screaming about an intruder. Yet every single time she checked the app, the hallway was empty. The peephole confirmed it. Nothing but silent, oppressive darkness. Tonight, the alarm blared again, piercing and relentless. Ploy jolted awake, her heart hammering against her ribs. 1 a.m. She fumbled for her phone, the screen lighting up with a crystal-clear image from the camera. As always, the hallway was deserted. But then, she noticed something new. A strange, sweet, and cloying scent was seeping through the crack under her door. It smelled like lotus incense, but mixed with something else. Something sickeningly sweet. The aroma made her skin crawl. Cautiously, she slipped out of bed, her feet cold on the floor, and pressed her eye to the peephole. Still, nothing but inky blackness. Suddenly, a dark figure flashed by, so fast she thought her eyes were playing tricks on her. Then, a whisper cutted on the air, as soft as the wind, yet chillingly unmistakable. "Ploy, do you remember me?" She recoiled, trembling, a wave of cold washing over her. The voice stirred a hazy, buried memory from her college days. A memory of a timid girl named Molly, a girl who was always the target of bullies. Ploy and her friend Suthan, who was now a real estate tycoon, and her close friend Fon had once participated in a cruel game. One night, they'd locked Molly in a school laboratory as a prank. The next morning, she was gone. Her body was found a week later. The whole incident was hushed up, and the three of them did their best to forget it ever happened. The next morning, Ploy met Suthan and Fon at a cafe, her hands shaking as she recounted the night's events. Fun, always the bold one, just dismissed it. Electronics always glitch. Ploy, you're just stressing yourself out. But, who was usually so composed, looked genuinely concerned. "I heard the whispers too," he admitted, his voice low, "and I smelled the incense." Fon shot them a scornful look, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of hidden fear. As she stood up to leave, she accidentally knocked over her glass. Water spread across the dark wood of the table, forming a strange, unmistakable shape. A lotus flower. Fun just stared at it, her lips moving as if she were whispering something to herself, before turning and walking out without another word. That night, Ploy decided not to turn off her phone. She needed to know. As the clock neared midnight, the camera alarm shrieked again. This time, the image was not empty. A figure in a white dress, its face completely obscured by long, black hair, stood silently right in front of her door. Chloe gasped, her thumb instinctively pressing the sound button on the app. A weak, mournful voice, filled with anguish, crackled through the phone speaker. "You left me alone," it moaned. "Now it's my turn." Just as suddenly as it appeared, the figure vanished, but the cloying scent of incense was no longer just a whisper from the hallway. It was now filling her room. She frantically called Suthan, but there was no answer. She tried Fan. A strange, shrill voice, not Fan's at all, answered, "Run, Ploy. But you can't hide forever." Panic seized her. Ploy threw open her door and dashed into the dark hallway, her own footsteps echoing like pounding drums. She rounded a corner and collided with someone. It was Suthan, but something was terribly wrong. He was dressed in pristine, traditional Thai clothing, pure white, without a single speck of dirt. The strong, sweet scent of incense was rolling off him in waves. Ploy Suthan's voice was high and shrill, identical to the voice she'd heard on Fawn's phone. "We need to talk about Molly," Ploy screamed, shoving him away, and scrambled for the stairs. The shrill, unearthly laughter of Fawn and the heavy footsteps of Suthan chased her all the way down. She burst out onto the nearly empty street, gasping for air. There, under the flickering neon of a signboard, stood Fawn. Her face was twisted into a horrifying grin, and in her hand, she held a single burning stick of incense. "We all have sins, Ploy," Fawn said, her voice no longer her own. "And now, it's time to pay." Ploy stumbled backward, only to bump into His face was a blank mask, his eyes soulless voids. He raised a knife, its blade glinting in the dim light. "She was so lonely," Suthan said, his voice flat, but his eyes piercing right through her. "She needed us." In that horrifying moment, Ploy finally understood. This wasn't Molly's ghost haunting them. It was their own obsession, their own suffocating guilt that had birthed this toxic, spiritual entity. "We didn't do anything wrong," Ploy screamed, her voice raw with desperation. "It was an accident. An accident." The voice of Molly rang out clearly, but it came from both Fawn and Suthan at the same time, a terrifying, layered sound. "You left me to die. You turned your backs on me." Fawn advanced, holding the incense stick like a weapon. Suthan raised the knife higher. In their eyes, she no longer saw her friends. She saw only pure, unadulterated madness. She tried to run, but her legs felt like they were rooted to the pavement. The sweet, suffocating scent of incense enveloped her, choking her. The footsteps closed in, and Molly's whispers echoed inside her skull. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," Ploy cried, her strength finally giving out as she collapsed onto the street. A cold hand touched her shoulder. She looked up and saw Fawn's face looming over her, but her eyes were entirely alien as black and empty as seeds. "Too late," a voice whispered. Ploy screamed, and everything plunged into darkness. She awoke to chaos. Red and blue police lights flashed across her face, and the air was filled with murmured voices. She'd been found in a state of severe shock, lying on the pavement beside the bodies of Fawn and Sooth. The official report closed the case as a tragic collective psychosis. Ploy survived. She even returned to the old apartment where everything impossibly seemed normal again. The security camera stayed silent. The nightmares faded, but one evening, as she sat in her quiet living room, a familiar scent wafted through the air. Lotus incense. Her heart began to race. Her phone, which had been silent for weeks, chimed with a notification. Her hands trembled as she slowly picked it up. The camera app opened automatically, showing the empty, silent hallway. But then, a figure in white stepped into the frame. It moved closer and closer until its face filled the entire screen. It was Ploy's face. Her eyes were pitch black, and her mouth was stretched into a terrifying, inhuman grin. "We will always be together." A voice sounded through the speaker, her own voice, yet not her own. One family. Ploy dropped the phone. A shrill, manic laugh. She tried to suppress it, to fight it, but she could feel her lips still spreading into a helpless, horrifying smile. A new entity born from the guilt she had buried so deep had finally taken control. It had found its final home. Thank you so much for joining me on this terrifying journey. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more chillin' tales. Stay safe out there, and see you in the next video. The old boarding room in Siem Reap was suffocating. The musty scent clung to everything, mixing with the sweet smell of jasmine drifting in from outside. I had come here to escape, to forget the sudden, wrenching loss of my younger sister. But tonight, the non-stop chirping of cicadas felt like a cruel joke, a chorus mocking my grief. Just when I thought I couldn't take another second, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. The message read, "Surya, I'm scared. Dad woke me up in the middle of the night to eat mango. My blood ran cold." I recognized the number. It belonged to Srey Mao, the quiet 8-year-old girl who lived in the wooden house across the alley. Her house always seemed unnaturally still. I quickly typed back, "You don't like mangoes, do you?" Her reply came instantly. "It's not about the mango, sister. Dad is acting really strange tonight." A shiver went down my spine. I frantically tried calling the local authorities, but every single line was busy. Futile. Then, another message came through a short, shaky video. The camera was pointed at a dimly lit kitchen. Shadows danced and twisted in unsettling ways. I could hear a man's voice whispering numbers, counting softly, but I couldn't understand why. The video cut out abruptly, leaving a void that my panicked imagination rushed to fill. "I already tried to call." "Hide," I typed, my hands trembling uncontrollably. Her response sent a fresh wave of terror through me. "I'm hiding in the closet. Last time I hid here, Dad didn't find me. Last time." What did she mean? Last time, my heart was a drum against my ribs. Desperate, I opened the building's group chat. "Anyone here? I need help," I typed, my plea echoing in the digital space. Almost immediately, a kind neighbor, Dara, replied, "Surya, what's going on?" But before I could explain, A new avatar popped into the chat, a solid black circle. The Namerida stray mouse. Dad. His message was chillingly casual. What's all this fuss, neighbor? No need to bother management. The kids are asleep. If needed, I'll come over. My heart leaped into my throat. He was coming over. I had to think fast. No, nothing. I lied, my fingers fumbling on the screen. I think I just smelled something odd. His reply was immediate and terrifying. I'll check anyway. Safety first. At that exact moment, a private message from Stray Mao buzzed on my phone. Sister, Dad went out. He's not in the house. Then I heard them. Heavy footsteps echoing in the empty hall, stopping right outside my door. I crept to the peephole and pressed my eye against it. Complete darkness. Something was blocking it. A strange, sickly sweet scent, like overripe fruit, drifted through the crack under the door, mixed with something metallic, coppery. My stomach churned. The keypad on my door lock started beeping. 1 beep, 2, 3, 11 times. The exact length of my password. How could he know? I remembered what Sister Sopik, another tenant, had told me. The man had been in a mental hospital, that he never fully recovered. Another message from Stray Mao. Dad brought a really big mango. 3 are enough. Come eat with us, sister. Attached was another video. The camera wobbled as Stray Mao seemed to move through the dim kitchen. Steam billowed from pots on the stove, and shadows writhed on the walls like living things. I couldn't make out what was happening, but the scene was so eerie, so wrong, that my mind filled in the blanks with horrifying images. I shut my eyes, trying to block it all out. When I opened them, a new message from Stray Mao's dad was waiting. I left something for you at your door. A soft, hollow thud sounded from the hallway. I peeked through the peephole again. On the doormat was a small object. I couldn't tell its shape, but a primal dread washed over me. A feeling that this thing was aware of me, watching me. I stumbled back from the door, my phone vibrating non-stop. A message from Dara Soria. I heard noises outside. Are you okay? Then one from Sister Sapik. Don't open the door. He's unpredictable. I heard strange noises all night. And then the final message from Stray Mao arrived. It was short. It was devastating. Soria, Dad knows I'm in the closet. He's opening it, smiling. He said, found the 3rd mango. A sharp, high-pitched scream tore through the night. Then silence. Absolute, deafening silence. I was frozen, curled up in a corner, my eyes locked on the door. The footsteps returned. Slow, deliberate. A soft thud signaled something had been placed by my door. The air grew heavy, the cloying scent of fruit and metal intensifying until I felt like I was choking on it. I stayed like that all night. When the first weak light of dawn finally crept through my window, police sirens were wailing in the distance. I crawled to the door and peered through the peephole. 2 officers were speaking with the building manager, Vaibol. Whatever had been left on my doormat was gone. Mr. I croaked, my voice raw. The house across Something is wrong. Bible looked at me, his expression calm, almost pitying. The house across. Which one? That house has been empty since the COVID outbreak. The family returned to the countryside and never came back. My knees gave out. I pointed a shaking finger at the derelict wooden house. The windows were shattered. The porch was draped in thick cobwebs, and the inside was a pit of darkness. One of the officers sighed. You're the third person this month to report the mango incident. Maybe you just need some rest. As they left, Vibal leaned in and whispered, "Be careful. Some places hold memories that refuse to sleep. Sometimes they reach out to sensitive souls like yours." I spent the rest of the day locked in my room, trying to convince myself it was all a terrible nightmare, a hallucination brought on by grief. That night, the phantom scent of mangoes returned, stronger than ever. I opened my phone and deleted the entire message thread, hoping to erase the memory, but the unease clung to me like a shroud. Scrolling through my photo gallery, I found an old picture me and my deceased sister laughing as we enjoyed a plate of mangoes. Her smile was so bright, so innocent, but looking closer, a horrifying realization dawned on me. The little girl in the photo? My sister. She looked exactly like Sremau. My phone vibrated one last time. A final message from the unknown number. Thank you for remembering me. Now we can be together forever. From the corner of my eye, I saw it. A shadow under my bed moved, a subtle shift in the darkness. It wasn't threatening, not directly. It was just steady, watching. The oppressive weight of its presence made my heart pound in my chest. I finally understood some memories never leave you. They linger just out of sight, whispering, watching, waiting. They remind you that the past never truly disappears. It just waits for you to remember. Thank you so much for joining me on this chilling journey. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Stay safe out there. The pale glow of my phone screen was the only light in my tiny apartment, flickering against the low ceiling. It was one of those old Tokyo buildings where you could hear your own thoughts echo. Outside, the June rain was relentless, washing down the window pane like the city was crying itself to sleep. It was almost midnight, but sleep was a distant luxury. A muffled, rhythmic noise from across the hall kept me awake. Mr. Sato's place. It sounded like scraping, tapping. I couldn't quite place it. Just as I was about to drift off, my phone buzzed, jolting me back to reality. An unknown number. I swiped it open, my eyes scanning the text. My heart did a painful little flip in my chest. Miss Akari, I'm scared. Dad woke me up to play with his new friends. It was from Little Me, the 5-year-old from apartment 204. A sweet kid. I'd give her candy sometimes when we passed in the hallway. My fingers flew across the screen. Ima, it's very late. You should be in bed. The 3 little dots appeared, vanished, then came back. My stomach tightened. Finally, a new message popped up. They're not normal friends, sis. Dad. He stopped taking his pills. He said Mom and Yuto are sleeping really, really deeply now. He's sewing new dolls from their clothes. He said they'll stay with me forever. A cold dread, sharp and icy, crept up my spine before I could even process what she'd said. Another notification arrived, a video file. My hand trembled as I tapped play. The footage was dark and shaky, filmed through what looked like a crack in a door. In the dim, flickering light, I could see Mr. Sato. He was sitting on the floor, 3 cloth dolls lined up in front of him. His voice was a low, soft murmur. 1 doll, 2 dolls. He gently stroked the third one, which was just a lump of fabric, unfinished, with no face. Then his tone changed, laced with a sudden, chilling confusion. The third one's not done. They still need a face. He lifted his head, his gaze empty and unfocused, and it drifted slowly across the room, directly toward the camera. The screen went black. I didn't hesitate. I fumbled to dial 110. Please, you have to send someone. Apartment 203. Something terrible is happening in the apartment across from mine. The operator was calm, professional. She said officers would be there in 15 minutes. I immediately texted Ima. Hide and keep quiet. The police are on their way. A quick reply. I'm in the closet. It's safe here. Those 15 minutes felt like an eternity. My small room seemed to shrink, the air growing thick and heavy. A strange smell began to seep in from under my door. It was the cheap perfume Mrs. Sato always wore, but mixed with the damp, musty scent of old fabric and something else. Something metallic and coppery, like blood. Then I heard it, a faint click. Click from the hallway. Keys turning in a lock. My heart hammered against my ribs. I crawled silently to my front door and pressed my eye to the peephole. The corridor was pitch black, except for the sickly green glow of the emergency exit sign at the far end. Empty. And then a dark blur shot past, blocking my view for a split second. I stumbled back, a gasp caught in my throat. Someone was standing right outside my door. I could feel their presence, a heavy, suffocating weight on the other side of the thin wood. My phone buzzed again, making me yumb. It was Amy, sis. Dad went outside. I heard the door. He was in the hallway, right. A long, distorted shadow stretched under my door, reaching into my room like a grasping hand. I could hear soft, heavy breathing. Then, slow, deliberate footsteps fading away, back toward his own apartment. Another text. Dad came back. He brought a very pretty, dull face. The police still hadn't arrived. It had only been 10 minutes, but it felt like hours. In a panic, I opened the residents' group chat and typed, "Did anyone hear strange noises on the second floor?" A reply came almost instantly from Mrs. Yamada downstairs. "No, dear. All quiet. I think the Satos went out this afternoon." My blood ran cold. Went out. But Amy was texting me right now. I messaged Mrs. Yamada privately. "Are you sure? I've been getting messages from little Amy." There was a long pause before she replied. "Amy." Another pause. "Listen, Akari." Don't get involved. That family, it's complicated. Mr. Sato changed after he lost his job. I saw him crying alone on his balcony once. Before I could ask more, my phone rang, an unknown number. My hand shaking, I answered. A deep, tired male voice spoke. Sorry to bother you. I'm Sato Yureneva. Did my daughter text you? Primera wa. Is he frozen, unable to speak? She said she's scared. I finally managed to whisper. I know, he sighed, a sound of pure exhaustion. Did she mention the dolls? I stayed silent, my throat tight. His voice suddenly became urgent, filled with a strange, desperate fear. Don't believe her. She's sick dissociative disorder. She imagines things. My wife and son are sleeping. Everything is fine. Please, don't call the police. They'll take her away from me. Beep, beep, beep. He hung up. I sat there, trembling, the phone still pressed to my ear. His voice had been so calm, so rational. Was it possible? Could Imi really be imagining all this? But the video, the smell, the breathing outside my door. My phone lit up again. Another message from Imi, this time with a photo attached. Look, sis, Dad brought out his new friends. The photo was blurry, but clear enough. It showed their dining table. 3 dolls sat propped up on the chairs. 2 were finished, their faces crudely stitched with black thread, their button eyes staring into nothingness. The third, a smaller one, was still just a faceless shape. They were wearing familiar clothes, Mrs. Sato's floral dress, Yuto's Lido superhero pajamas. I couldn't breathe. A memory flashed in my mind. Mrs. Sato, just last week, handing me a small basket of strawberries, her eyes crinkling at the corners as she smiled, her gentle, kind eyes. Suddenly, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, closer. Relief washed over me. I scrambled to the door, ready to shout, to wave them down, but I stopped. Through the peephole, I saw 2 officers knocking on Mr. Sato's door. He opened it, looking tired but perfectly composed, his clothes neat. Sorry for the trouble, officers, he said softly. My daughter, she has a disorder. She imagines these horror stories and calls strangers. My wife and son are asleep. Everything's fine. We still need to check. Sir, one of the officers replied firmly. Mr. Sato nodded and stepped aside, opening the door just a little wider. And in that small sliver of a view, I saw her, Mrs. Sato, walking out from the kitchen area. She was wearing a bathrobe and holding a sewing needle and a small piece of flesh-colored fabric. She smiled at the officers, stiff, unnatural smile. Her eyes, they were glassy, lifeless, like buttons. Te door sot. A few minutes later, the officers left, giving Mr. Sato a casual wave goodbye. Silence returned to the hallway, thick and absolute. The rain outside continued its steady, drumming rhythm against the city. My phone lit up one last time. A final message from Imai. Sis, the police are gone. Dad said it's time for the 3rd doll. He said he needs a real face, the most perfect one. Sis, Can he borrow yours? I stared at the screen, the phone's cold light illuminating my terrified face. And then I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. Not a knock. It wasn't the sound of knuckles on wood. It was sharper, thinner, the metallic sound of a sewing needle tapping against the door. Or maybe scissors. The tapping continued, slow and patient. It wasn't in a hurry. It knew I was here. It knew I was the missing face for Mr. Sato's eternal family. I slid down the door to the cold floor, clutching my head as the tapping sound blended with the patter of the rain, creating a haunting, endless rhythm for a nightmare that had no end. Tap, 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 forever.